as much as possible from us. They tried to shed as many U.S. Treasury bonds as possible. They got rid of as much of our currency as they could. And they've been doing business as often as possible in rubles, in other words, their own currency. Now, as part of BRICS, they're bringing in new members. And one of those new members, starting in January, of course, is Saudi Arabia. That means that the Saudis will be doing business with India, China, Russia, Brazil, and other countries, not in dollars. I mean, you're staring at the end of the petrodollar. The end of the petrodollar is the first decisive step in the direction of eliminating the dollar as reserve currency. We're going to have serious problems economically as a result of this. We got to stop lying to people. This is awful. The Russians have profited enormously. Everything has backfired on these frauds in Washington. And that's what this Mr. Romney is. He's a shameless fraud.
It's interesting. Joe Biden attempted to rally the world behind Ukraine and break Russia. Instead, he's breaking America. Instead, it's our dollar that's being broken, and Russia is actually stronger. So all the experts at the CIA, all the experts in the permanent war machine of Washington, D.C., tell us, okay, this war is terrible, sanctions, tariffs, trust us. And in reality, we now have the emergence of BRICS. Quickly, just kind of what is BRICS and the significance of the new member countries?
Well, the new member countries, including Saudi Arabia, are all agreed that they are going to do business with each other in currencies other than dollars. They're also agreeing tacitly to the long-term strategic goal of pegging currency to gold. And of course, India, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia in particular, the Emirates, all of them have amassed great quantities of gold so that the currencies can actually be traded as pegged to gold. All of this puts us at risk because, remember, we're entirely dependent on the fiat financial system. And we have been able to compel everyone to use our dollar. People have to borrow in dollars and spend in dollars. This is about to end. Nobody is going to allow us to pass our debt on to them any longer. So the real question is, how much longer do we get away with anything? I mean, look at the...
Just stay right there. 1 second. Just 1 second. We'll be right back. Colonel Douglas Macgregor continues. Colonel, please finish your thought. Sorry about that.
No, I just think the audience needs to understand, because they hear constantly, oh, the economy's fine, everything's going gangbusters, and we're going to be sitting in clover over the next year. What they need to understand right now, which is very, very serious, it's not just the BRICS and the new members that come in January, they're going to trade in their own currency, and ultimately, as a long-term strategic goal, want to peg everything to gold. It's the fact that our treasuries now, in terms of yield, are going up, but the prices of our treasury bonds are going down. Now, why is this? Obviously, it's the interest rates that are rising. But as people, both in our own domestic banking system and foreign banking systems, look at the U.S. treasuries they've been buying for now almost 2 decades, they look at these and they're not worth anything because they bought these things when the interest rates were near zero. All of a sudden now they're dealing with interest rates that are rising rapidly. So how do we sell our bonds? Well, we drop the prices to the point where they're worth almost nothing as it is. And the Fed cannot add that much more toxic debt to what it's already got on its books. So everything has to be viewed against that background economically.
So Colonel, you mentioned something to our team in the break that I find really interesting. You said it took about 5 years for the American public to turn against the war in Vietnam, but this is at a much accelerated timeline. Probably started at 10 to 15% of Americans that wanted nothing to do with involvement. Now it's 55%. It's 95% of the conservative base. Walk us through this. This is a promising development.
Well, remember that from 1965 until almost 1969, our media stood behind the Johnson administration and its lies about what was really happening in Vietnam. What was really happening was very different from what was reported. And obviously the Tet Offensive threw that into sharp relief. So then the media at the time said, you know, we've got to stop lying. Let's start telling the truth. It made them unpopular with diehards who thought we were actually fighting communism when we weren't. Communism was not really the issue in Vietnam. It was a civil war we had involved ourselves in. But today you have a different phenomenon. Today the media is universally in the West backing this insanity against Russia.
Yes.
They're part of the same lobby that wants to essentially destroy the regime and then divide the country and sell off its resources at bargain basement prices and enrich themselves. In other words, the ruling political class in Washington is bound up with the people who run finance and the media in the United States, who are dominating all the policy making. But the American people are smart enough to figure out, wait a minute, why are we shipping all of this overseas? What about all the people that don't have jobs in the United States? What about the growing numbers of homeless? What about the fact that our borders are open and we're adding 2.3 million people about whom we know nothing, people that we probably can't employ, and more important, will never assimilate? So frankly speaking, the American people have figured this out. The problem is that there are still too many listening to the lies. They haven't wakened up to the fact that you can't trust the government.
Quite a concept. And so as the public opinion continues to move, and the Democrat Party's all messed up. They used to be the anti-war party. Now they're completely on board for this, which is really interesting. And the Republican Party actually has more people out speaking out against it. Just final thought, minute and a half remaining. Is one of the reasons why the West is so against Russia is because they're not totally on board for this LGBTQ stuff, that they stand against some of these kind of social liberal is that kind of a component of this that doesn't always get covered?
Oh, no, I think it is a component. I mean, clearly Russia has said, we're not opening our borders. We're not going to subject our population to the influx of millions of foreigners who are coming to Russia not to join us, not to work with us, not to assimilate, but to take us over. And they've looked at Europe and they say, well, if Germany and France are examples of success stories for globalism, we don't want anything to do with it. Then, of course, you have the underlying foundation of Russian Orthodox Christianity. And the people that are currently leading the charge against Russia utterly hate Christianity. They despise it. Let's be frank. You know, we're talking about people that are atheists, nihilists, Marxists, and ultimately globalists. It's all bound up together. It's one sick, perverse ideology, and wokeism is perversion. The Russians know it. We know it. Why are we pretending it's not?
Colonel Douglas Macgregor, wonderful commentary. Thank you for being one of the lone voices of sanity in the midst of this tragedy that we're involved in. Thank you so much.
Okay, Charlie. Thank you.